Investigators still searching for answers about how and why a trespasser breached the tarmac perimeter at Denver International before being fatally struck by a departing plane. According to the airport, a pedestrian jumped the perimeter fence and was hit just 2 minutes later while crossing the runway. The airline said smoke was reported in the cabin and the pilots aborted takeoff. Airport officials say pilots deployed emergency slides to evacuate the plane. Both the FAA and TSA say they're investigating how it happened.
It's unclear how this person made it through, but this is what the perimeter looks like. A fence with barbed wire and still more than half a mile away from the nearest runway.
Yeah, that's pretty uncommon for anyone to be on the runway. I was listening to some other news about it, and they were sharing how this may happen more often in other countries, but in the U.S., it's very rare that someone is on the runway. Just sad because, not only is it a tragedy, you have these people who are on the plane who are thinking that they're going somewhere, and boom, they find out that, hey, we got to evacuate. We can't take off. Somebody's been hit. And I think there was news that said that part of the plane, one of the engines caught on fire, so it was a ruckus going on. I'm just glad the people on the plane, they were safe. Unfortunate for the life that was lost. And like they said, they're still doing the investigation, trying to figure out why was this person even on the runway. I mean, of course, we don't know, but it's just not safe to be on a runway and to jump a fence that's barbed wired. Yeah, I don't know how they're going to find out what was going on in that person's mind, but yeah, tragic. But I am on the flip side glad that everyone else is okay. Let's see.
What happened on Thursday was I walked into the Tennessee Capitol in 2026, and when I walked out at the end of session, it was pre-1965. What we saw was the largest attack on Black electoral power since the Civil Rights Movement and the Crown Jewel, which was the Voting Rights Act. What we saw was an almost entirely white Republican caucus strip away and dismantle Black political representation because the Supreme Court ruled in Louisiana v. Calais that we cannot protect, racial minorities in voting. So they've created all majority white voting districts now in the state of Tennessee, diluting minority vote, and doing so with surgical precision. They've crafted Memphis, one county, one city, into 3 congressional districts that go up to 300 miles away as a way to dilute that vote. They already did this to Nashville. And so we're seeing them take us backwards in history to a time we don't want to go to.
Now, what will be your worries, about this redistricting map, the kinds of attention that some communities would be getting or no longer would be getting as a result of this redraw?
What we're seeing now is we're having this new Jim Crow system in which Black and brown communities are without voice in our political process. And that was intentional. And I think it's going to be, something that's a canary in the coal mine for the rest of the nation, that if they come for one of us, they're coming for all of us. And so my message to America is that the South is the front line of democracy, that they're dismantling multiracial democracy here in the South in states like Tennessee and Louisiana, but they're not going to stop here. And I want to tell America to pay attention to what's happening, because we need your help in the South. Don't give up on the South, but help us to have solidarity here and help us to fight back.
Yeah, when the Voters' Right Act was gutted, I knew already it was going to be a problem. For the fact that it was put in place to, protect from racism, which we know is still going on today, and discrimination, and unfortunately they gutted it, right? And they already started redrawing these maps, and these maps are what he's essentially saying is that the way they're redrawing the maps, they're redrawing them in a way that makes it to where certain votes are less relevant or less potent. And it's definitely strategic. All of this stuff comes down to power. Yes, I do believe there's racism involved in it. It comes down to power, political power. These are political games that are being played. And because votes, matter, there's always cunning schemes at work when they're doing these things. And if they have to, gut rights and acts that were put into place to be able to do what they want to do, then we'll see it happen. And it's clear to me that something is at work. The redrawing of maps and making it to where these maps are redrawn to position certain political sides. There's a reason for it, because like I said, the Voters' Right Act was put in place for a reason, especially specifically targeting the prevention of racism and discrimination. And we know those two things still exist today, hasn't stopped, and it won't stop because it's a sin issue. It's an issue of the heart, and we just see it playing out in our country. And if it was put in place for a reason, it shouldn't have been removed. And unfortunately, a lot of times these things happen. People who are informed become distracted by other things. There's just so much going on. I do think this is important. I do think it uncovers a lot of what, some people have been denying all along, that racism still exists. Like, if you put something in place to prevent something, why remove it then? It's, to me, common sense that it would stay in place, but because there's an agenda at work, political powers are clashing, which that's how it always is, and they're just wrestling for greater power. And it's sad to see that it's come to this, but I think awareness and approaching this with an understanding of what's going on is really helpful. But I don't see things getting any better with that, because the agenda is already at play. They already gutted it, and we just have to make sure that we stay informed and aware of our opportunities, especially when it comes to votes and how to make sure we're keeping others informed about it. Let's move on to the next headline.
Health officials think they've tracked down the source of the deadly Hantavirus outbreak aboard the MV Hondias cruise ship. 2 passengers who died from the virus likely contracted the infection while birdwatching in Argentina and then boarded the ship after being infected, spreading it to other passengers. The Dutch couple who died visited a landfill as part of a birdwatching tour near the southern tip of Argentina. Authorities believe it was there that they contracted the virus from a rodent. But there's a big hole in this theory, and health officials admit it. There has never been a recorded case of the virus in the area where this couple visited. We're also learning more about how and when the virus spread on board. The Dutchman who first fell ill on April 6th died on April 11th. At the time, there was no suspicion of hantavirus. His body stayed on board for 2 weeks, and during which his wife became ill. Now, she flew with her husband's body to Johannesburg, South Africa on April 25th, and she passed away the day after she arrived. 8 more people got sick over the next 2 weeks. 3 of those who were evacuated from the ship were flown to the Netherlands for treatment, one of whom was the ship's doctor. We also learned that 23 passengers left the vessel and returned home all over the world, including here in the U.S., 2 weeks ago, before anyone knew what was going on, and one of them is already sick. The ship itself hasn't been allowed to dock anywhere as of yet, and the 150 passengers left on board so far have been thankfully asymptomatic.
Listen, it's just important to stay informed. There's always so many moving pieces, but like my uncle taught me a long time ago, he said, nephew, follow the money trail. And it hasn't failed me yet. Between the money and the power, you follow that trail, you're gonna find your way. Let's see what else they're saying. What other updates on the Hantavirus? Let's see.
We've got those passengers who are now headed to the facility in Nebraska. What are we expecting? What's happening right now?
What are they trying to prevent? Why the big deal? What they're worried about is you have an incubation period of up to 6 weeks. So what if the virus is incubating, right? No symptoms, you have no idea that you have it, and you just go home. Suddenly, you become symptomatic, and we know from Dr. Palacios, who I spoke to this morning, did the studies, that you're most infectious and contagious right when you become symptomatic, right? When public health works, nothing bad happens. The bad thing that would have happened here is
listen, when I hear people talk with like such assurance of like what mankind is doing, I get leery because we have a history of saying, hey, it's okay. And then on the other side of that okay is absolute chaos. Public health does not guarantee bad things not happening. But let me let him finish because I'm leery of him already.
Person who tested positive this morning, this is really important news. That person, if they just went home, they would have been walking around, and then suddenly, you have a little, aching and maybe a little fever, you don't realize you're sick, and then suddenly you become symptomatic and you spread it. What they've done here is because of the abundance of caution and the public health measures, as they were flying over here, the people who they were worried about were in biocontainment pods.
Man, he
special
looks
pods,
sketchy.
so they wouldn't infect the other people on the plane. They got here. The person who tested positive is now in a special biocontainment unit where they can get specialized care if needed. Everybody else is being quarantined, is being monitored closely.
But Dr. LeBouk, somebody brought that virus onto the boat, which means they got it from somewhere else and took it there. And I think Americans are concerned that this could be another coronavirus, another COVID.
Right.
So can you explain why that is not the case and why public health officials are not concerned that this is going to be the next big pandemic?
Right, and I understand the problem. The problem is we all have PTSD, a lot of us do, me included, for the pandemic, right?
Do you think this could be a pandemic?
No, absolutely. I'm going to just say it right now. Okay, I'll go
That's
on the
great
record.
news.
This is not going to be a pandemic. And, and it's brushing up against the advice.
We hope it's not a pandemic. I hope it's not. But man, like he said, I've learned to not, to hear people and to say, I hear you, but to take what they say with a grain of salt. Like him saying this won't be a pandemic, I hope not. I don't want it to be that. And I'm not being a conspiracy theorist to where I'm like, yeah, well, it's going to be one. I hope it's not one. But I'm also not completely believing him. Because I'm telling you, people get on these news platforms and TV and radio and podcasts and just lie straight through their teeth, just lie. And I mean, it's hard to believe them. Even doctors, they was lying. All kind of lying was going on, and all kind of money was being made during COVID. So I'm gonna let him finish up, but like I said, he looked a little sketchy.
Of the WHO that's giving you reassurance. But what's giving me reassurance is not the reassurance of somebody saying, don't worry. It's the science here. And we know that COVID can float across the room. It can be spread from person to person easily. This, yes, can be spread from person to person. But over short distances, it's basically adapted to infect rat to rat, not human to human.
Okay, so can I ask you a question that's been driving me crazy? So as recent as last year, some data has shown the rattiest cities. You have...
oh boy, watch what you're saying there.
Los Angeles,
I know he's going here.
Chicago, and New York.
Yeah.
Meaning the cities with a lot of rats.
Yes, not the rattiest cities. But how could it be that you can have tons of rats in the New York area or in Los Angeles or in Chicago or any major city, and then we get the Hantavirus on a cruise boat where people are doing water sports?
Right.
I'm really curious about that. And I don't know if you know the answer.
No. Well, so I knew nothing about Hantavirus, and now I know a ton because I've been reading. Basically, in the United States, and it's not the species that can go from person to person. It's in the Four Corners area, where it's very dry. South America, very dry.
Okay.
And what happens is the feces or the saliva or the urine gets, dries up, and the particulate matter goes up into the air, and then you can inhale it, and you can get it that way. Somebody got infected by a rat, probably, came onto the boat, and then from that point, how many people became ill because they also got infected by rats or because it was spread from person to person?
Yeah, I hear you, doctor. But I don't. Listen, y'all be careful out there. As you know, I'm a man of faith. And anytime I hear a human being say, everything is going to be okay, I get leery. Because we don't have final authority in the earth, Him saying he believes in the science. Listen, I know the God who made science. So my faith is not in the science. My faith is in God. Jesus specifically So when I hear, everything's gonna be all right, I'm always like, I hear you. God is in control though. So I think it's important that we stay informed in all of these matters, with the Hantavirus, with the Voters' Rights Act that's been gutted and the changes that are being made. We don't put of course we push back against these things. We don't want them to happen because we want things to be done in a way that provides equality and fair treatment and justice, right, for all people, because we're all made in the image of God. But we also don't place our hope in that. We place our hope in Jesus, because we know the things in this world, they're going to fade. They're going to fail. They have the ability to be contaminated and defiled and to perish. And there's a lot of evil going on, a lot of greed, a lot of desire for power and money. So with those things, people do evil to get over, to get access, to get power, to get control. So we just have to be aware, but also make sure our trust is in Jesus. And, of course, again, to the family who lost a person on the runway, condolences, and not just to them. I'm telling you, there are people who are grieving all over this world. People are losing loved ones, day in, day out, So condolences to not just them, but to others who've lost their loved ones. And let's just keep one another in prayer. Let's keep fellowship, fellowshipping, making sure we're taking time to, gather together and open up the word and be reminded of our hope in Jesus, the good news of how Jesus came and died for our sins on the cross, was buried and rose again. And that's why our hope is in him. It's a living hope. It's a hope that doesn't perish, doesn't fade, and can't be defiled. It can't be gutted like the Voters' Rights Act. It can't be defiled by getting, Hantavirus and anything like that. And that's what makes it so powerful and so potent and so special, because it's a living hope in a true God, and that hope is in Jesus. Y'all be careful. Y'all stay aware. Y'all be prayerful. And no matter what, always know there's hope. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section. We got a website full of merch, www.there'shopebrand.com. Check out our merch. Also, we do content. We're spreading hope to the world. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you get subscribed. I'll catch y'all in the next video.